they're going to have no bridges. Every power plant in Iran will be out of business, burning, exploding by 12 o'clock. And it'll happen over a period of 4 hours.
That's not strategy. That's escalation. He just threatened to decimate an entire country, every bridge, every power plant, Stone Ages. This isn't just rhetoric. It's a calculated gamble with your money, your stability, and the future of global conflict. You need to know what's really happening.
We have a plan, because of the power of our military, where every bridge in Iran will be decimated by 12 o'clock, where every power plant in Iran will be out of business, burning, exploding, and never to be used again.
Trump and American defense officials speaking to reporters last hour. Today's briefing following that dramatic weekend rescue of a U.S. airman in Iran and a new mediated push for a ceasefire. Trump also doubled down on his latest threats to Iran and his ultimatum to open the Strait of Hormuz.
We're giving them till tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern time, and after that, they're going to have no bridges, they're going to have no power plants. Stone Ages, yeah.
That is a direct threat of war crimes, on camera, without flinching. He just laid out an apocalyptic scenario promising to obliterate civilian infrastructure. Not a mistake, a choice. And he's doing it for you to hear.
The president continued to ramp up his threats against Iran ahead of a deadline that he's imposed for them to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Talk to us more about what we're hearing from the president. He was pretty direct and curt with his words.
Yes, I mean, this builds on that jarring post yesterday on social media in which he basically said, they have to open the effing strait. It was a profane post, or, we are going to start destroying civilian infrastructure. In that specific tweet or post, he was talking about power plants and civilian infrastructure, which, of course, most international law experts, it is viewed through the eyes of international law as a war crime.
That's not a policy debate. That's a direct line to your grocery bill, your heating costs, and your job security. Because the moment those threats escalate into action, the global economy feels it. You feel it. This is exactly what Partisan Pulse exists for. The moment between what they said and what the record shows. Because that gap, that's where your money disappears.
There are limited exceptions to that. And so it has really caused quite a blowback within the U.S., particularly among Democrats, but also criticism around the international community around that particular plan if a deal is not struck by, as the timeline he has given, 8 p.m. Eastern time. He was asked by reporters, if you're going to target civilian infrastructure, is there anything that would be considered off limits? And this was his response.
We have a plan, because of the power of our military, where every bridge in Iran will be decimated by 12 o'clock tomorrow night, where every power plant in Iran will be out of business, burning, exploding, and never to be used again. I mean, complete demolition by 12 o'clock. And it'll happen over a period of 4 hours if we wanted to. We don't want that to happen.
Now, you heard there the president saying he doesn't want that to happen. There continue to be indications of talks.
That's documented. That's on the record. International law experts call it a war crime. But Trump just described it in vivid detail, not as a hypothetical, but as a plan. And here's the mechanism. These threats aren't just for show. They drive up global oil prices through fear. The CBO already ran the numbers. Even a 10% increase in Middle East tensions can spike oil by 15-20% in a quarter. That's another $50 to $75 per month for the average household at the pump. Your household.
The Iranians said earlier today that they rejected a 45-day ceasefire deal. They want something that's more lasting, more permanent. And Iranian state media reporting that a 10-point plan was sent to Pakistan this afternoon. Of course, the country helping with these mediations, but it isn't clear whether these negotiations are going to go anywhere. And of course, the rhetoric continues to be heated. We heard a post today from Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, who on Telegram posted that assassinations and crimes won't disrupt Iranian armed forces. So some pushback there as well from Iran's sort of new supreme leader.
So, Katie, as we've been watching sort of what could be unfolding over the next few hours, perhaps leading into tomorrow, President also talked in great detail about the rescue of the airmen in Iran.
He says he doesn't want that to happen, but he just spent 30 seconds describing exactly how it would happen. That's not confusion. That's strategic messaging. But here's what didn't make the headline. While he's threatening Stone Ages publicly, behind the scenes, negotiations are happening, and a complex, daring rescue operation just unfolded, one that relied on precision, not pure destruction.
Some of the details have to be held back because of a lot of this operation and the way that it was conducted. It still falls under classified rules, but incredible details about the daring rescue, particularly around some of the ordeal that and the way in which the airman relied on his training. So we learned that the weapons officer, this was the person who it took longer to extract. The pilot, of course, of that F-15 was rescued within hours. So the weapons officer, it turns out, was ejected quite a distance from the pilot's location. And we learned that, of course, he was injured. That had been consistent with some of the reporting. And the President Trump sort of detailed how it is that he survived despite those injuries and relying on his training. Just take a listen to a little bit of that.
The officer followed his training and climbed into the treacherous mountain terrain and started climbing toward a higher altitude, something they were trained to do in order to evade capture. They want to always go as far away from the site.
Pay attention to this number. One F-15 pilot rescued within hours. The weapons officer injured, ejected far away, scaled treacherous terrain, treated his own wounds, and contacted American forces. This is the part they left out. This isn't about brute force. This is about training, about resilience, about intelligence. The government can do complex precision operations. So why the public threats of total devastation? What's the real game being played?
Of the shoot down, you want to go as far away because they all head right to that site. You want to be as far away as you can. And he was injured, and he was an amazing, amazing thing. He scaled cliff faces, bleeding rather profusely, treated his own wounds, and contacted American forces to transmit his location.
So this officer essentially scaled into a mountain crevice, which is where the CIA was eventually able to pinpoint his location, and then the military operation began. And we got some new details about all those images of planes that had to be left behind, charred, blown up C-130s. They had apparently landed in Iran at a farm with very sandy, soft soil, and they sort of got stuck in the earth and couldn't take off. So smaller planes were sent in to fly everyone back to safety. And the Daily Mail, Angie, is reporting that those smaller aircraft were de Havilland Dash 8s, which, of course, are Canadian-made planes. The U.S. military does have some of these that they do use. So an interesting Canadian connection there to this rescue operation as well.
Indeed, and we did hear the president touting about the sophistication of those small aircraft, those small helicopters during that address.
That's not a glitch, not a miscalculation, a choice to leave behind C-130s charred and blown up because the soil was too soft, a choice to bring in Canadian-made de Havilland 8s, smaller planes, for the rescue. This whole story is a contradiction. Public bluster about total destruction, private, precise operations, and a world where your stability hangs in the balance. Go back to what Trump said at the top. Now you know it wasn't confusion. It was the answer to a question nobody asked out loud. How much chaos is he willing to project to get a deal? The record is clear. The timeline is documented. The only question now is who's watching. Drop one word in the comments, deterrence or recklessness. Let's see where this audience lands.